A1C's high or your blood pressure's high and you're like, crap, I might have to clean it up, right? I might have to grow up. I'm going to die if I don't. So that would really ruin the day if I had a heart attack. And so you start looking around a little bit, and here's all this plant-based stuff everywhere. Again, do you think could it be about money? Could it be that the billionaires are buying up all the farmland and growing soybeans and peas and wheat and canola, and magically everything plant-based is going to make you healthier? And so just imagine this person who's living on Pepsi and Cheetos and Ding Dongs. And they're like, I got to clean this up. This is dumb. What am I doing here? So they do a little research, and lo and behold, they discover that a plant-based diet is going to make them healthier. So they switched from Pepsi to fresh squeezed, non-GMO orange juice. You laugh, right? We all laugh, but do you understand the average person walking the street that you and I haven't happened to yet? If you said, what's healthier for you, a Pepsi Cola or fresh squeezed, non-GMO orange juice, they'd be like, oh God, orange juice, no question. Right? Apple juice, grape juice, oh my God, pomegranate juice, that's literally comes down from heaven. They don't know that in many cases the fruit juice is actually higher in fructose than the high fructose corn syrup sweetened Pepsi Cola or Coca-Cola. They don't know. It looks like they've made a good choice, but they haven't. It's a false choice. And they stop eating the Doritos and they start eating Sun Chips. Because there's a picture of a farm on the bag and it says whole grain. Is that one damn bit better? No. And then instead of the Ding Dongs and honey buns, they start eating this just delicious dessert that's vegan. It says vegan right on the pack. Fat-free vegan. Only 100 grams per serving. 100 calories per serving. 100 calories. And so they literally have upended their life. They have stood up, they paid attention, they learned some stuff, and they're in the same damn boat they started in. But it's just painted a different color. They're still going to wind up with all the pharmaceuticals. They're still going to wind up with all the suffering and pain and disease. That's the false choice that every time you or I stay silent, that's the false choice that we're letting our friends and neighbors and loved ones make. They're still going right down the same path towards disease. But they've got this false impression that they're doing a good job now. Does that make sense? Or the person who, they've heard about keto, they're like, oh, keto, okay. So I'm going to go keto. And so they go to the supermarket. And they get a big loaf of keto bread. And they get keto pancakes and keto pancake syrup, keto shakes, keto bars. They get keto everything. Yeah, I think now there's a keto toilet paper. And they get some keto toilet paper. Everything in their house is keto. And they get a little better, but they don't reverse their type 2 diabetes. They've been tricked again. Now, make no mistake, my enemies are big food and big pharma. A distant second is big supplement and big fake health foods, right? They'll buy Cliff bars and they'll buy, what's the other bar? Nutri-Grain. Oh yeah, Nutri-Grain bars. Because Fruit Loops are shit, but Nutri-Grain bars, healthy. There's a picture of a barn on the package, right? So everybody's trying to trick you. Everybody's trying to get your money. It's human nature, especially in the United States. We're all trying to get paid. We don't want to just flat out rob people, but if I'm a little smarter than you and you fall for my bullshit, whose fault is that? I don't know. I don't know whose fault that is. Is that a crime? If I'm smarter than you and you fall for my bullshit, is that against the law? If you believe the mechanic and you pay for a new transmission, sign the contract, you all signed everything, and there you go. Is that a crime? Did you need a transmission? No, you just need some transmission fluid. But you got a new transmission. Maybe you got a new one. Maybe it's a refurb. Who knows? I don't know. I think that the last few years through the pandemic, I think it woke a lot of people up. And even though it was really sucky, it was really not fun, and it was not anything I'd recommend going through, no. All your friends and neighbors, almost without exception, if you say, I think they've been lying to us about some stuff, if you said that back in 2015, they'd be like, oh, you got your aluminum hat, tinfoil hat, oh. But after COVID, I think most people would be like, yeah, I think you're right. What are you talking about? Right? And most people, all your friends and family members, it's human nature. If you find out that somebody's been lying to you about one thing, they may be lying to you about other things too. So the two things I want you to take away from this today, and then I'm going to answer as many questions as I can, is number one, for the vast majority of chronic disease, you do not need a keto-friendly doctor, a carnivore-friendly doctor. You don't need your doctor's permission to eat a certain way. Okay, if you're Jewish, you don't need your doctor's permission to eat kosher. You just do it. Okay, if you're a redneck, you don't need your doctor's permission to eat beans and taters. You just do it. Right? If you're vegan, you don't need your doctor's permission to eat Brussels sprouts. You just do it. You don't need your doctor's permission for your diet. Your doctor is not your daddy. Maybe in a case or two, but usually not. If your doctor's a fertility specialist, it may be your daddy and you don't know. That's happened.
That's true.
That's a thing, and I'm sorry that's a thing, but that's a thing. Again, doctors are just dudes and chicks. They are capable of the worst behavior imaginable and the best behavior imaginable. The only kind of doctor you need is a doctor who is not arrogantly ignorant. That's the worst kind of ignorance. My friend Bubba, who dropped out of Lewis County High School in 8th grade. Tony Roan was his name. I still love him. He was my tackle. Before every play, I was tied in. We'd line down and he'd say, what am I supposed to do? Block left. Okay. And then if you piss me off, I'd tell him the wrong thing and he'd get in trouble. He is just ignorant. It's fine. I love him. Still know him to this day. But arrogant ignorance. Holier than thou ignorance. That's dangerous. When you're in a position of authority, if you're an attorney and you're like, I know everything about the law. You do this, this, and this, and the advice is wrong. Yeah. You're in trouble. Right? The problem with doctors giving nutrition advice is that they're really not held to any standard. They get to just pick from a random smorgasbord of what they'll recommend. Typically, it's the news story they saw on the news last night. Oh, plant-based. Okay, got it. I'll recommend that to everybody. And I'll not only recommend that to everybody, but I'll recommend that with arrogance. Well, you're a damn fool if you don't eat plant-based. Everybody knows it. Based on what? You don't need your doctor's advice when it comes to your diet. You eat the diet you think is best for you. The one that gives you results. Okay? You need your doctor to order labs. You need your doctor to maybe order a diagnostic test. You don't need a keto or carnivore doctor. That's number one. Number two, people are ready. The society all over the world is ripe for the picking of saying, they lied to us about a lot of that COVID shit, right? Flat out, provably lied. Flat out, provably. And most of your friends and neighbors will be like, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're probably right. Do you see what an opportunity that is to say, guess what? That's not the only thing. They're also lying to you about this plant-based bullshit. Okay? A plant-based diet is great if you're starving to death. If you're trying not to starve, eat all the plants, eat all the wheat, all rice, corn, yes. Drink the canola oil out of the bottle if you're trying not to starve to death. But if what you're trying to do is reverse chronic disease, lose excess fat, feel better, get rid of brain fog and mental health issues, you better eat a proper human diet. And if your doctor says, oh, you shouldn't do that, you smile and nod and say, yes, doctor, thank you for that. And then you do whatever the hell you think you need to do for your own personal health. But now's the time for you guys to reach out and say, look, they've obviously lied to us about some stuff. They're lying about this too. You guys heard about the new court ruling in the Northern District of California. For years, fluoride, oh, fluoride's good for you. Fluoride, oh my God, fluoride. Give your baby fluoride. If you're pregnant with a baby inside you, drink fluoride. It will somehow magically make the baby's teeth stronger. This is total horse shit. Okay? Fluoride used topically in specific situations, it's probably a good thing. But to put fluoride in drinking water is just ignorance. In a recent ruling in a district court, the judge was actually for the first time ever allowed to hear all evidence from both sides. And the language he used is so strong that the Environmental Protection Agency is now forced to open a case and look at fluoride in the water supply with fresh eyes. He said it is an unacceptable hazard to the public, or words to that effect. Very strong language. Never anything like this has happened before. They've lied to us about a lot of stuff. And I don't even think some of it is nefarious. I don't think they're trying to kill us. I don't think there's a conspiracy. It's just human nature, because refer back to what I said earlier. Doctors are just
Dudes and
dudes and chicks. They're just dudes and chicks. They're just doing what every other human on the planet does. If somebody they respect says something, they're probably going to repeat it. Just like some of you guys, you cook specific dishes just exactly the way you cooked it because that's how your mama taught you to cook it. Is that the best way? Maybe. Is it the only way? No. But how are you going to cook it? You're going to cook it the way mama taught you to cook it because that's your mama. That's how doctors look at the doctors who train them. That was Dr. So-and-so. Oh my God, he said this. Boom, that's it. Just dudes and chicks. If they got the COVID shit wrong and they got the fluoride shit wrong, what else did they get wrong? It doesn't mean there's a conspiracy. It doesn't mean that. It just means people are people and people do dumb shit. Especially they're going to do some dumb shit if they can get paid to do it. And also get the accolades and get the long white coat and get to wear that stethoscope and to get all that stuff. They're going to do it. You don't need a doctor to teach you about diets. You're here. You know. Who's somebody that reversed their type 2 diabetes? Who taught you about this way of eating? Oh, okay. But who said, there's this crazy redneck doctor on YouTube you ought to watch? Who was that? Okay, so just an internet search. What about you? What's your friend do at work? What's he do? An electrician taught him how to reverse his type 2 diabetes. This is the last time I want to hear from any one of you, well, I'm just fill in the blank. Shut your mouth. Help your friends and family. You know how to do it. Do it. Please. Have you seen the rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes and fatty liver and hypertension. Wait, I'm not talking about in adults.
Kids.
And doctors.
I'm talking about in little innocent children whose pediatrician is saying, yeah, give them 3 Ensure a day and at least 2 or 3 glasses of orange juice and good whole grain cereal, not that half-assed grain chip. Give them the whole grain cereal because that's magic. Skim milk, 20 years. We're going to wait. Kids are going to develop diabetes. People in their 20s will be on dialysis.
Yep.
People in their 30s will have their first amputation. People in their 40s will have their first heart attack. Because it takes the people at the top 20 years. It's so egregious, it's so despicable and embarrassing that me and a group of low-carb MDs and PhDs got together and we created the American Diabetes Society.
Yay.
For the first few years on YouTube and on Twitter and other social media, you guys have seen me yelling at the American Diabetes Association, saying, what the hell is wrong with you? Inviting Dr. Bob Githey, their medical spokesman, like, come on my channel, let's talk about this, please. Let's talk about this. There are people dying. Young people. Before the clinic fire, I had a young man who I'd been his doctor since he was probably 3 years old. He had type 1 diabetes. And he was about 22. And he came to me and he said, Doc, I got problems. And this poor guy, he's a teenage boy. He would come in, his A1C would be 11.2. I'd be like, dude, I'm telling you, you're not going to be an old man when this shit starts hitting you. You're going to still be young and with life to live. He came in when he was with 22 years old. He said, Doc, I think it's happening. I'm having some ED. He was engaged. And he's like, I can't, it just doesn't happen. 22 years old. Engaged. About to start a family. That's happening right now all over America, all over the world. That shit is happening. And that's why we said, well, are we going to just sit back as professionals and wait 20 years? And just let all those people suffer and die, and then maybe the next generation we can help them? No. So we started that, and a good friend of mine who I've seen here several years in the past, he slipped something in my pocket yesterday while I was in here. We got back to the room, I pulled it out, it was a $1,000 check to the American Diabetes Society. Which will be put in the bank immediately. He asked me not to say his name. But a lot of you guys know him. And he said, this is the best I can do, but I know you're going to do the best you can do. And now I'm going to turn that around to all of you guys here today and say, are you going to do the best you can do? Yes. Are you? Are you going to do the best you can do? I hope so, because there's 22-year-olds all over this country that are starting to have symptoms right now. Most of it's still reversible. But if we don't act, if we don't speak out, if we don't say, hey, call bullshit when it's bullshit. Because I promise you, if you're the first person to ever call out your local doctor and say, that's bullshit, don't listen to him in public, ooh. But what if you're the second person? What if you're the 5th person or the 10th person or the 20th person? Guess what that doctor's going to get tired of pretty quick. And you can't sue everybody for slander, but if it's true, it ain't slander.
That's right.
Right? But when enough people have called out these doctors publicly on Twitter, call them out. That's bullshit. Why aren't you saying that? Call them out on Facebook. Call them out on Instagram, TikTok, Clapper, wherever. At church. Call them out. What would happen if you went up to your doctor who you go to church with and say, you know, Doc, all those medicines you had me taking for type 2 diabetes and you kept recommending that plant-based diet, I stopped doing all that ignorant shit and I started eating keto and I reversed it out loud in front of about 10 other people at church. Woo! The pucker factor. And the first time that happens to that doctor, he's going to be furious at you for doing that to him in public. Should we be doing that type of stuff in public? Are those kids' lives worth it?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a question only you can answer in your heart, in private. But I think it is. I think it's time to stop being so polite. And remember that doctors are just dudes and chicks. And all they sometimes need is just like Beckett. They need a little negative reinforcement. And you say enough times to that doctor at church, you really ought to catch up on your reading, because type 2 diabetes is completely reversible with a very low carbohydrate diet. You say that enough time, guess what that doctor's going to do?
You're going to read.
He's going to go home and pull up the Google machine and say, what the hell is this keto diet bullshit about? I'm sick of hearing it. And that doctor's going to learn. Because doctors used to be good students. That's how they got through med school. Right? They're still capable, but you're going to have to hold their feet to the fire a little bit. You're going to have to keep calling them out and start respectfully. But then if it's not working, obviously, just like Beckett, I start out real sweet and nice. And we progress, right? It accelerates, right? We build and build, and finally he whoop his ass and he goes to bed, and that's fine. But hopefully it won't come to that with the doctors. Hopefully when we call them out respectfully, they'll say, let me look into this. Because a plant-based diet, all the research on diabetes and vegan diet, they're always promoting it. But when you look at the studies, guess what a vegan diet never does?
Reverse type 2 diabetes.
Reverses type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
Now, it'll lower your A1C if you're living on the Ding Dongs and Pepsi and Cheetos, and you switch to a whole food plant-based diet. It will reverse your A1C. Yes, and you'll feel better because you stop eating the toxic chemical soup of the ultra processed, right? You'll feel better for a while, but it's never going to reverse type 2 diabetes, ever. There's only one way of eating that does that, and that's a proper human diet. But people have got to hear this. If y'all hadn't heard that, you wouldn't be here. But now you are here. And now it's time, regardless of what you do for a living, regardless of your IQ, regardless of your skin color or your creed, I do not care about any of that. If you are a human being, you should eat a proper human diet. And if your friends and family members are human, they deserve to know about a proper human diet. And it's my job to run my mouth, which I do, but it's also your job too. And that's all I've got to say about that. Questions about anything at all? Come to the mic if you have a question. We got 16 minutes, so we can do a bunch of questions. Yes, ma'am.
My son was diagnosed with type 1 almost 30 years ago. My husband was diagnosed with type 1 almost 35 years ago. Reversed type 2 prediabetes with low carb. My question to you is, through your new diabetic association, society.
Yep. ADS.
How do we convince endocrinologists and pump manufacturers
Yep.
that an A1C of 5 would be great for them?
Yep.
That if the pump starts alarming at 80,
Yep.
you need food right now. I'm trying to tell my husband, you can be 75.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, most CGMs and most pumps that are monitors that type 1s would use, the alarm goes off at 70, 75, 80, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, your blood sugar's getting too low at 75. True story.
Right? And then my husband
And the
says,
reason is because in the past, the only way to lower the blood sugar was with insulin injection or the pump. And it's super easy, as she'll tell you, to miscalculate, to overcalculate and give too much insulin. And you get a hypoglycemic episode, which is very scary for a parent and can also kill you if you're driving or if you're doing something else. So out of an abundance of caution, they're like, we can't tell type 1s that you want it, it's fine if it's 69, but that's too low. So, but when it comes to treating type 1 diabetes with diet, it's fine to have an A1C of 5.0. It's fine to have a blood sugar of even 55 if you got there with food and not with too much insulin.
oh, but his doctor tells him that is unacceptable.
100%. It scares his doctor to death.
I hope you can change.
That's one of the things we're going to be working on. A good friend of mine on Twitter is coming up with type 1 diabetes guidelines. And right now, based on low-carb keto carnivore, and that'll be available on the ADS website. Sure.
My husband's been keto with me for the last couple of years. I've been 6 plus.
And he's got type 1.
He's got type 1.
Yep.
And he inevitably has low blood sugar and then needs glucose, and he can't kick his sugar taste, his desire
Sure.
for carbs and sugar, because I know it takes like 30 days to get
Yep.
rid of those feelings. And he, other than stable blood sugar.
Cross your legs. How much do you love him? What's it worth to you? You love him. You want to keep him around.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
blood sugar gets down to 40, I gotta get rid of it.
Absolutely you do. So, but then I don't know him. I don't know you. I don't know y'all's relationship. But you need to up the stakes, whatever that means, to your relationship, if you want to keep it, because he can't keep doing that. Yeah.
They'll do
Yes.
it.
Coach Marcia.
Dr. Barry, I do not have a question, but I have a request. You told us a few stories, success stories. If you could tell this story, it was a story you told to Dr. Cybers on an interview one time. It was about a child that you saw after a conference that was covered in eczema.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was in Panama.
Yeah, could you
Yep.
tell that story? 'Cause
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
Very,
So-
very impactful.
100%. After I went to Panama, the country, not the city, to give a conference, keto conference, and afterwards we were all at a bodega sitting around, and this lady who was a friend of the conference organizer. This is just goes to show you how it's so hard to wrap your mind around this. Her son, cutest little boy, probably 2, had just head to toe eczema, covered up. It was weedy and oozy, but you could tell he was just a sweetheart, right? He was just a loving little boy and had that intelligence in his eyes. But just if you looked at him, he was just covered with open wounds. And I'm like, what are you feeding this kid? He's just like, oh, I follow Jay Matos. He's the guy that put the conference on. I've been doing what he says and blah, 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 blah. And she thought she was doing good. Young mother, young 20s, early 20s, right? You remember how you were in your early 20s. We're all pretty much dumb as hell, at least I was, in my young early 20s. And I'm like, she's like, I'm feeding him wholly natural, whole, whatever. And her diaper bag was sitting there on the floor, and I just reached over and picked it up. You some of y'all know how I am. I just make myself at home. And I just opened it up and started laying stuff out. And there was the whole wheat crackers, and there was the little goldfish, and there was the little, and then comes the dairy, and here's the little, cheap ass cheese sticks. And I'm like, man, you literally you're doing this to your son. You know me. You're doing this. You're causing this. And she started crying. And I gave her a hug and I said, I'm sorry, you were causing this. But if you'll listen to me, you can also stop this. And she threw the shit in the trash at the bodega before she even put it back in her bag. She threw it away. And I said, none of that is human food. This is causing that. Stop that. And she did, and some months later, Jay, the organizer down there, sent me a picture of her and her son. Beautiful, beautiful brown Panamanian skin, not a lesion on him anywhere. And that's nothing I did, that's something she did. As soon as she knew better, she did better. And that's what we're all capable of that. She worked at a little, she sold clothes, like she was a salesman at a little clothing store. She didn't have a PhD. She didn't know. She wanted desperately to do the right thing for her son, but she didn't know what it was because nobody had just yanked her damn diaper bag away from her and laid the shit out and said, stop all this shit. As soon as she knew better, she immediately did better. And I find that to be the case with almost every human being on the planet that I interact with in any country, any language, any age, any gender. If they're like, shit, you mean I can do this a different way and it's a better way, well, I'll start doing that immediately then. Your doctor thinks that you're lazy and dumb and you don't want to do better. He thinks you want to lay on the couch and eat Cheetos. But the average person, when they know better, they're like, well, crap, I'm going to do at least a little better. Yeah. And that's just living proof of that. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am.
So my question is about the USDA made food banks. So I was reporting a story about a food bank being opened in a hospital, which, wow, that seems like a great idea, right? You go in there, they've got the refrigerator containers, they've got oranges in there, they've got fruits and vegetables, which supposedly are healthy, and then on the shelf, there's oil.
Yeah.
It says vegetable oil. I turn the package around, and it's soybean oil,
Sure.
which I'm thinking, this is probably,
It's low in saturated fat and cholesterol free. What's wrong with you?
Genetically modified, which, you know.
Yeah, it's gotta make it better, right?
And to give that to mothers.
Sure.
To feed their families, well, and
Yeah.
they're coming there to get it for free, and when I asked the food bank, you know, could you offer a healthier choice? And she said, well, we can't, we get this from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, so,
Yep.
like.
Yeah.
she said,
You guys have all
she
heard
said,
of
we have
big-
no choice, and so I'm
Yep.
just wondering what.
You guys have all heard of big food and big pharma. There's also big ag. Billion-dollar companies you've never heard of. Archer Daniels Midland. You heard of them? ADM?
Yep,
Did you know that's a private corporation?
sure is.
They're not public. They're owned by one family.
Big money.
And they control like 35% of the entire U.S. food supply. Would you trust just one family of people to control 35% of your personal household's foods? Like you're dependent on them to get 35% of your food. Well, that's what we're doing. They're not a public company, so they can keep all their books private. They can keep everything private. They're a private company. They're not traded on the stock market. Yeah, that's a true story. Big ag is just as bad, and that's where the USDA basically works for big ag, just like the FDA works for big food and big pharma. That's why I'm always encouraging you guys to find a local source of eggs. Find a local source of beef, sheep, goat, whatever, possum,
Raccoon. Any of
local fish. Literally, we've got to, the only way we're going to change them is to hurt their pocketbook. That's the only language they understand. And one person's mouth is not going to do it. But if everybody in this room said, no, not only am I never going to give you another penny, but none of my family and friends are ever going to give you another penny. Forget it. Guess what would change? Almost overnight. Almost overnight. Because when that money stops flowing, all of a sudden they get real interested. Okay? And yeah, so how many of you guys have a local food bank? How many of you guys donate food to the local food bank? What do you donate?
deer meat.
Is it real food? Our church has a little subdivision off of the main big food bank in the county. And every time I think about it, I order a case of tuna, a case of salmon, a case of sardines from Amazon, take it to church. That's real food. But of course, when I get down there in the basement where they keep everything, it's nothing but grains and sugar and seed oils. That's all it is. But by God, I've done my part. If we all do our part, there's always going to be a real food option, even for the poorest of the poor among us, who very often don't deserve their lot in life, but that's what they got. They need a real food option at the food bank. And you guys can make that happen. Okay, I'll try. Yeah, but
What did your household give up for Halloween? And where's Nurse Nisha?
Nurse Nisha is in the back. And typically, what are we going to give out for Halloween this year? Sometimes we just turn the porch light off and lay low.
Yeah.
Here she comes. Here she comes.
We give out stickers, glow sticks. You can find these things very cheap, especially, if you order them in bulk. We usually do, and if we don't give them all out, then we just give them to the kids throughout the year, or take them to church with us, or whatever. Let's see, Hot Wheels cars, like not the real ones, because those are going to pricey. You can buy them in a pack at the Party City. pack of 5 for like $1 or something. Kids, they don't really care. They just want to come and say hi most of the time. Most kids love stickers, and most kids love glow sticks, and they're getting candy from everybody else. But honestly, they're excited to get something different. So you're the person who's something different. Don't do the scrambled eggs thing that have you guys seen that? It's like one handful for every kid, but it's scrambled eggs. It's a joke, obviously, but it really grossed me out. But I think most kids are just having fun with their parents, and they're not as concerned about the candy as we think that they are.
Yep. Dr. Whitten? Now, one more question, and then I've got an announcement. Let's do this one right here. Make it good. Make it good. Okay. Go ahead. No pressure. Go ahead. Okay.
My 34-year-old son has horrible nasal polyps. He's getting ready to do his second surgery. Other than carnivore diet, would you give him any advice?
Yeah, he's going to have the surgery. If they're so big that they're obstructing, his risk of infection and all kinds of stuff goes up. Even risk of sinus cancer goes up a tiny amount if they're huge and they're touching. He's probably going to have to get them, and then just carnivore. And then also, are there any offending chemicals in his environment? Is everything as chemical free as possible? Is he fluoride free? Is he bromide free? Is he all those things? Because the food, that's probably 85% of it, but there may be some other chemicals in your life, in your house, in the laundry, in the shower. All that stuff needs to be as single ingredient, natural and pure as possible, but 85% chance it's the food.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I've spent this entire talk telling you that you don't need a keto or a carnivore doctor. And true to myself, now I'm going to introduce to you a keto carnivore nurse practitioner who is licensed in Kentucky, who can take care of patients remotely. If you're one of those people who have your very complex medical issues, like I'm not sure if I can do this or not, Amanda Decker, come on, say hi.
For those of you in line, unfortunately, Dr. Berry's not going to be able to get to your question on stage, but be sure to catch him before you leave. So sorry about that. You can go ahead and take your seat.
Catch me outside.
Catch me outside.
Here.
Now I'm just a chick. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So I'm just a chick that's been doing this for 20 years. About 10 years in, I started trying to make up for the first 10 years of my practice when I messed people's lives up.
See why I like her?
Yeah.
And then about a year ago, I got to the point where I realized that in my current medical system, I still was not making the dents that I needed to make. I was stuck in sick care. So I broke free, and I am creating Clear Path Medical with the help of my great friend, Dr. Berry. He's my supervising physician in Tennessee, and will be in Kentucky very soon, hopefully. My goal is to work with people to optimize their health, whether that is for weight loss, or to get off blood pressure medicine, or get off diabetes medicine, or to just be the best that you can be. That's what I want to help you do. And by me stepping out, I'm giving other providers the courage to step out of this sick care system and to care for people in the way that we should have been all along. And your part is to, when you find these providers, help us out too. Come along on this journey with us so that we're all going to step out of it together. Any party words, Dr. Berry?
Shut up and eat your meat.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
eat your meat. Thank you guys. It's always a pleasure.
Keep it going for Dr. Berry. 5 seconds to the timer goes off. Sorry. There we go. All right, we are officially out of time.